Key points 1. A totalitarian government uses oppression and manipulation to enforce its rules and will on the masses. Totalitarianism is a system of government in which the people have virtually no authority, and the state wields absolute control. Leaders of totalitarian systems are shrouded in a mysterious cloud of fear that doesn't let anyone have enough detail about them to judge or have an opinion. There is absolute control over what the masses read, eat, wear, hear, and so on. There is little room for people to feel like free-willed humans due to the strict guidelines they must follow. Super surveillance is a tool employed to ensure total compliance from the population. Rulers keep an eye on the masses, ensuring they follow the rules and regulations and punish those who falter. This concept is known as Big Brother, often repeated as Big Brother is watching, creating the illusion of an all-powerful, all-seeing eye you dare not defy. But this is yet another tool to frighten people into subservience and obedience. In reality, there was no omnipresent, omnipotent Big Brother anywhere. It was simply that the government had other people in positions to report aberrations. They were called thought police, monitoring people covertly to ensure they didn't act out of line or form independent thoughts. If they noticed any deviations, they kidnapped the offender discreetly and brainwashed them until they behaved accordingly. In a normal society, rules and a moral code hold people to specific standards. Proper behavior is a common thing, and there are punishments for deviation. Remember, people obeyed rules because it made living in their present environment easier, not because they had to. A sense of duty and loyalty is born of intention, not compulsion. In this summary, you'll discover how dangerous and inhumane it is to operate a system of totalitarianism. You'll also learn how totalitarianism forces people to conform to strange laws and unnatural punishments. You'll learn how classism, mass media control, government surveillance, and manipulations can control history, thoughts, and lives. Did you know? Totalitarianism started and ended at different times in different parts of the world. Wikipedia reports Turkmenistan is still actively under totalitarianism as of 2022. Key point 2. Propaganda helps to instill lies in favor of the people in power. Totalitarianism employs a heavy dose of propaganda to ensure total obedience. Propaganda is a concerted set of messages aimed at influencing the opinions and behaviors of large numbers of people. Keep in mind that propaganda are lies created to blind people from obvious truths. Since their only source of information is the government, people believe anything they hear. It is a recurrent theme even in today's society. In politics, people looking to enter or remain in office have used propaganda to push their agendas. Enforcers are people paid to make propaganda look credible. These people are at the forefront of the agenda and do their best to ensure stories become so-called facts. As such, you shouldn't believe everything you see online or in the news. Be skeptical about every piece of information, and if it's something important to you, ensure to double-check the facts. Remember, social media is the major platform for the spread of propaganda in modern society. In the society described by George Orwell, surveillance and information worked hand in hand as people received false truths and were monitored to ensure they accepted and adhered to them. This strategy kept people loyal to the government and the country. The masses hang on to every word from the ruling class, waiting for what they believe to be the truth. Truth is whatever the government wants it to be. It is important to discern between truth and propaganda and act accordingly. It would be wiser if you found the truth for yourself instead of taking everything you see or hear. Often it might be a ploy to keep you under the control of a much higher power. Until they become conscious, they will never rebel, and until they have rebelled, they will never become conscious. George Orwell. Key point 3. A totalitarian government's power and control cement its ability to inflict mental and physical pain. A subtle power play similar to propaganda is the subversion of reality, twisting the perception of truth into the opposite. This tool employs the mind's ability to create perceptions from a shift in the norm, adapting to new information about surroundings and life. The human mind can accept random and conflicting information and continually change its perception of them. The subversion of reality has created poverty in several parts of the world. Many poor people want a way out, but a much larger number are fighting to prevent them from breaking the shackles of poverty. The same is evident today in the slums and ghettos, even in developed countries. There is also a subversion of the minds of the masses, controlling their urges and desires. The government dictates what the people are allowed to do, what to feel, what to say, and who to love. In George Orwell's account of 1984, the lower class of citizens weren't allowed to have sex unless for procreation. Any form of passion was prohibited. The only kinds of human connection they were allowed were loveless and cold, leading to many broken relationships. This kind of rule caused great strife between families and pushed them apart. These tactics give the government absolute control over the masses and create a very dispassionate and dull populace. It also helps to reduce any form of rebellion and objection to the rules. Uninspired people are too busy battling their own pains and struggles, even to muster thoughts that oppose the typical setup of a totalitarian system of government. Key point 4. A totalitarian system enforces checks and strict rules that ensure the unchanging loyalty of its subjects. Forced submission is a vital tool in the hands of a dictator. Loyalty fosters a healthy sense of duty to a cause. However, many use it as a weapon. Total submissiveness is a kind of loyalty coerced and forced from the masses. They have no choice and have to offer up their loyalties without question. A totalitarian system doesn't settle for anything other than total submission and unconditional obedience. A demand such as this only results in zombie-like behavior from the people. It isn't the same thing as willful loyalty. When people are willing to offer up loyalties to a cause they care about, they retain their sense of self even when they swear to a cause. But a totalitarian system isn't satisfied with just being loyal. It requires a much greater depth of servitude. Most of the time, this is ordinarily hard to accomplish, but not for a system like this. Remember, securing a people's loyalty with force requires a lot of scare tactics. Constant surveillance and monitoring continue to prompt the masses to tremble and follow the rules. The job of the thought police is to keep people from thinking outside the box. When these people notice someone swerving from the usual routine, they are secretly captured and made to reinstate their loyalty through systematic brainwashing. Power is in tearing human minds to pieces and putting them together again in new shapes of your own choosing. George Orwell. Such brainwashing is effective with the subversion of language too, changing words and phrases to mean things that aren't true. For example, war is peace is one common phrase that blurs the populace's minds into accepting a false reality. Constructs like this were used to replace the truth and disseminate it as fact, helping to alienate the masses from reality. Even in the 21st century, subtle coercion is used to make people do things they ordinarily wouldn't do if they thought deeply about them. Become more independent by intentionally choosing your values rather than following the crowd. Key point 5. Classism is a system that ensures one group remains poor and powerless in service to the wealthy and all-powerful. Classism stratified people into various classes or groups. There were two significant groups described by George Orwell. The elite class, who had all the luxuries and comforts in the world, including servants and people ready and willing to do their bidding. The other class was the poor, those who lived from hand to mouth and weren't allowed to enjoy conjugal pleasures or familial lives. For them, their lives were to be in service of the government, and they should consider it mercy, a privilege to be ruled. The elites were the ruling class, the few individuals who decided the fates of everyone else. Keep in mind that totalitarianism streamlined the thoughts and behaviors of the lower class by robbing them of any semblance of joy or freedom. The ruling class was often less in number compared to the poor class, but this didn't diminish their power or capacity to effect control. In fact, it strengthened it. The ruling class enslaved poor people, and they managed to convince them that serving the rich was the best anyone from that part of the country could aspire to. The dreams and hopes of the poor class were limited to small goals, such as offering their lives in servitude to the ruling class. The ruling class then empowered a few in the poor class and made them rule over the rest. This system ensured that people remained loyal yet agitated, not rebel because the controlling hand was now closer to home. These disgruntled few who managed to see the class system as a sham were often branded enemies of the state and persecuted. Worse, the brainwashed poor class carried out this persecution, falsely believing the government's rules. They were the law enforcers. This system of government almost ran on autopilot because it fed humanity's self-centeredness and hatred for others. What difference does it make to the dead, the orphans, and the homeless, whether the mad destruction is wrought under the name of totalitarianism or in the holy name of liberty or democracy? Mahatma Gandhi. Did you know George Orwell was only a pen name? His actual name was Eric Arthur Blair. Key point 6. If you remove a person's identity, it becomes harder for them to regain any independence. It's pretty easy to keep subjects under control in a totalitarian system. People will indeed accept a lie if it is repeated enough times by enough people. The system has in its arsenal the tools necessary to instill fear and a desire to offer up complete loyalty. It does so with propaganda, twisting facts, bending reality, and robbing people of their fundamental rights. A vital trait of a totalitarian system is a people without their identities or the will to think for themselves. A loss of identity is the gradual removal of one's core beliefs and values. The things that define us and make us unique erode slowly, replaced by a uniform set of values and beliefs. It goes as far as having everyone dress the same way, from their haircut to fabric color and design. The homes they live in, the cars they drive, food they eat, and the things they watch are monitored and dictated by the ruling class. After a while, you lose your uniqueness. Nothing makes you special and you sink into the pre-designed slot. You become nothing but a number, a speck of dust on the seashore. Control such as this ensures they have similar aspirations, similar likes and dislikes, and a similar religion. Everyone mirrors the next person until they all become the image of the perfect, obedient, enslaved person the ruling class desires. An individual with a loss of identity or individual thought cannot decide what is best for them, nor can they know what they want. It is pre-scripted for them. They know nothing else but what they are told to do since birth. These are the dangers of such a system. A lot of self, a loss of ambition, and a desire to be or do better are a byproduct of totalitarian rule. Freedom is the freedom to say 2 + 2 make 4. If that is granted, all else follows. George Orwell. Conclusion. 1984 addresses totalitarianism. We are taken on a journey into a world where it's the only system of rule. We learn that the people under such a rule feel powerless and too divided to fight back, so they simply accept whatever they're told. Their lives are pre-tailored to suit the system, and it's how they must live until they die. Such a system creates soulless or broken people with zero identity or independence, which keeps the ruling class ever powerful. Totalitarianism is gross oppression and must never be allowed to make hold in any system, whether a nation, a classroom, or a family. A government such as this feeds off the submission of the masses and ensures itself of more control by instilling fear through scare tactics and mental domination. Such a system operates on lies, a subversion of truth and history to keep the populace in check. It is a perversion to the usual way people are supposed to express their rights to have freedom, facts of history, and truth. Totalitarianism makes a clear distinction between the rich and the poor. The poor believe that such a lowly status is the best they can get in life. Their reality is warped. Rather than focusing on their financial lack, they instead work against each other. This style of government is targeted at a public psyche as it seeks to control them without applying physical pressure. Instead, it breaks down individuals from the inside out, robbing them of the will to question, rebel, or harbor any thoughts that aren't sanctioned or informed by the ruling class. Try this. There's so much information overload in our world today. Protect your mind by being selective about the things you let in. Write down your beliefs about yourself, the government, and the world. Challenge these beliefs by actively searching for information that contradicts them to be sure you're not feeding on propaganda. Set goals to improve your lot in life and never settle until you reach your potential.